the PowerPoint presentation just to make sure that you have an updated copy. Should be available a few hours after this presentation ends. So once you're on our Calvet website, you'll go to the CalTAP page, and I'll show you how to go through that as well. So just a few housekeeping things. We are asking that all participants stay muted and keep your cameras off. This helps keep everything kind of loose and moving and not taking up too much bandwidth so that we can focus on our presenters. You also should have received a pre-packet information where you would have received a copy of the Veterans Resource Book, a digital version. You would have received a link map and a few other things that will help you and give you lots of information. You also would have received the agenda that gives you an idea of what we will be going over today. At the end of this presentation, we will be doing a virtual Q&A panel, and this will give you an opportunity to ask any questions to the presenters here, anything that you want addressed. We are asking that you utilize the chat function in order to send your questions to one of our CalTAP members. You'll see in the chat function, it does say CalTAP questions. Just go ahead and type your questions there, and we'll get them over to the presenters so that we can address them during the Q&A. If you do have any questions for anyone on the CalTAP team or for Calvet in general, please feel free to reach out to us on this 1-800 number. It is a 1-800 number, but someone will answer. You're not gonna have long waits. And you can always shoot us an email. We do have access to that. Someone will respond to you promptly. So definitely reach out if you have any questions. I'm gonna do a quick overview of the California Transition Assistance Program, just to give you an idea of what you can expect from us. So CalTAP is designed to inform and connect veterans of all eras to their state and earned federal benefits. And we do this through 4 major pathways: core curriculum, education, entrepreneurship, and what did I say all 4? Employment. There we go. So to get to Calvet's website, you can just do a quick internet search, just typing in Calvet. That does help us distinguish ourselves from the VA. You should be able to find that on that first link. You'll click that, go to our web page from there. There we go. This is what our web page looks like. On there, you'll also be able to get access to that veteran resource books that you would have received in your email. So if you have family members, friends who also are veterans and would like a copy, they can get that online on our website. This is what it will look like once you're loaded up there. In addition, you can also find our CalTAP page on that main site. There it is at the bottom with that little laptop. And once you're there, you'll be able to go through our 5 modules. The 5th one really is for our service providers, and the other 4 are more geared towards veterans themselves. So how can you use CalTAP online? Once you go back to that page, you can just click on any pathway. I'm going to click on core curriculum. And once you're inside of there, you'll see a variety of modules. And all of this has information for you that you can go through at your own pace, to visit whenever you need to if you need more information. I'm going to go ahead and click on module 5 so you can see what that looks like. It's your California benefits. Once you're on that page, you'll see a list of lessons. These are PDF documents that will give you a variety of information in detail of what, in this case, what your specific California veteran benefits are. So here's that would look like. It will be a PDF document that you will view from your computer, from your phone. Again, just to make sure you have the information at your fingertips at all times. So at this time, I'm going ahead and turn it over to our local interagency network coordinator, Kevin. He's going to be talking to you about what he does for California veterans. It'll just take a moment to get him unmuted.
I'm good to go. Looks like. I'm going to go ahead and go. It looks like I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Yeah, hi, my name is Kevin Graves, and I'm the local interagency network coordinator for the Bay Area. Can I get the next slide, please? Apparently, I'm not unmuted. There we go. So there's 8 of us in the state, and these are the regions that we serve. You can see that some of them are designated by population, some by geographics, but we tried to split the state up as fairly as we possibly could. And a little bit about who we are and what we do. Well, personally, again, my name is Kevin Graves. I'm a Gold Star dad. My son gave his life for his country on 25 July of '06 in Baghdad, Iraq. I currently serve as a sergeant first class in the Cal Guard, the 185th MP Battalion over here in Pittsburgh. I'm passionate about what I do. Most of the people, everybody that I work with is also passionate about what they do, and we're here to serve you. Can I get the next slide, please? So what we do is our we were established at the height of the global war on terrorism back in 2010, when we were getting a lot of service members separating and coming back into California. At the time, or currently even, we have about 12% of all veterans in the United States live in the state of California. At the time, we had over 2 million veterans living here in the state of California. Calvet had the insight to say that they needed to reach out to veterans that were coming back and help them transition into the community. And so they developed our program. So what we do is we work with for-profit, nonprofit, governmental, non-governmental agencies to provide veterans and resources within the benefits, within the region that we are in, to help serve you. We make referrals. We assist with local emergencies. The fires have been a big thing in the last few years, and we've been at all the local assistance centers providing resources for veterans that may have lost their DD-214, they may have lost awards and medals and that type of thing, or even housing, and try to help them get back to a normal life. We also provide leadership and advocacy to our local communities. We provide advice to organizations that want to work with veterans on how best to reach out to veterans, and we assist them and give them the tools to do that. Can I get the next slide, please? We also partner with our sister agencies, quite a few of them actually, but specifically with regards to employment, we partner with the EDD. They have designated individuals within the EDD that work strictly for veterans. They work to either find veterans jobs, or they work with employers to find jobs for veterans. And so we work closely with them when it comes to employment. We refer you to the EDD. We also work hand in hand with the federal government and the healthcare systems and the benefit systems, actually, the VBA and the VHA. We provide resources for them, as well as give feedback with regards to how they're doing with veterans, where their issues are, what problems they may be having, or where they're doing a good job. And we make sure that we communicate with them on a regular basis at a lot of their healthcare centers. And then we also work extremely closely with our county veteran service offices. They are really our boots on the ground. I will speak a little more in depth about that in a couple of minutes, but we refer almost every veteran that we have to our county veteran service office. Can I get the next slide? Again, these are the regions that break down on this map. If you want to take a screenshot, or it's probably been provided for you in a PDF file, this shows the different counties and in what region they're located, and who the link is, all of my fellow colleagues that provide benefits and resources in those particular regions. Any of us can assist you, but obviously we're better at the regions that we're familiar with, and so we ask you to kind of use this as a guide. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about our relationship with our county veteran service offices. Can we have, yeah, there we go. Next slide. So what does the CVS do? The CVSO does just about everything. They provide veterans and benefits with free benefit information, assistance, and some counseling, and a lot of referrals. So if you want to file a claim, if you're looking for DIC, if you're looking for pen and comp, whatever it is, the people you want to go see are your county veteran service office. If you haven't been there, and I'm sure many of you have, but if you haven't been there, I highly recommend that you go see them, because you don't know what benefits you may have coming to you unless you have somebody ask you the right questions. Through their success, they brought in about $457 million in new or increased federal benefits to veterans in the state of California. And that not only helped you as an individual veteran, but it also helped the state economy. It's a little questionable now with this COVID thing we're going through, but we're still working at it. Next slide, please. These are the types of assistance that the CVSO provides. I'm not going to read each one of these to you, but I may highlight a couple. I surely want to highlight the comprehensive benefits counseling. They are experts at understanding VA rules and laws. They study it all the time. They do it 24 hours a day. They're great at what they do. They can do discharge upgrades. They can refer you to a nonprofit that may be able to help you with the discharge upgrade. Records request, you need a DD-214, they can help you file that type of paperwork. And again, they do comprehensive work for the state of California. The college fee waiver is, you would go to them, and they are the ones that would provide that paperwork for you and help you navigate that system. And also for the veterans designation on the license, on your driver's license, they are the authorizing agent validate that you are in fact a veteran, so you can get that done. Next slide, thank you. How do we find this CVSO? If you happen to be fortunate enough to have a California resource book, they're in the book. Every county is listed there with phone numbers and addresses. If you don't have that, and in this virtual world that we live in today, you can go to our great new website that we just had developed, and you can see where it says how to find a service provider. And when you click on that, it will take you to this screen. You can fill in your zip code, and it will take you to the County Veteran Service Office that is closest to your zip code, or that is in the county that you live in. If you're looking for a different county, or for a friend that lives in a different county, if you click on the blue area just above that box that says zip code, where it says show all county veteran service office by county, that will list all of them. Every county in the state of California, it will list the contact information, and you can click on that and find them. Next slide. Also on our front page, we do have a phone number that you can call if you need to try to find a veteran service office. That phone number is also listed, I believe, on our opening page for calvet.ca.gov. And I believe, oh, there's our contact information. If you need to get a hold of us or Calvet headquarters for anything, any questions, that number is will be answered best as we can at this point, but it will be answered by a human being, and you can speak to them. There is my contact information. You can feel free to contact me, take a screenshot of this, reach out to myself or any of my professional colleagues, and we will do the best we can to give you the best service that we can for the service that you've earned as a veteran. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, thank you, Kevin. At this time, we're going to turn it over to Julie Thornberry. Just give her a second to get unmuted. Hold on, Julie, we can't quite hear you yet. No, still can't hear you. Okay, try now. Nope, can't hear you. It says she's unmuted, right? And then she mutes it. Yeah, it's just a second, folks. Hey, Julie, you should see when we hit unmute, you should see a request that says we've asked you to unmute. And once you see that, you can click on that and it should work. No, I see your lips moving. Julie, do you want to try calling in on your phone? That way we can see you and hear you at once. You can log on twice. Give us just a second, folks. Thank you so much for your patience. Hi, Julie. Have you tried adjusting your mic volume? Because you're unmuted. Don't know what happened there. Okay, everybody, while we're waiting for Julie to get logged in, I'm gonna go over just a few things for you. That way we're taking advantage of the time we have here together, just by showing you how to get on our website. So I'm gonna go out here and let me start a new window. Here we go. All right, let's see if it'll load up. So as Kevin mentioned, we have upgraded our website. So this is what the live website will look like. There you see the veterans information there, how to find your CVSO. At that top of the page, you can find a service provider. That is a button that we do highly recommend that you use often. Like Kevin said, if you would like to get access to a CVSO that's in a different county, you can do that as well. You aren't limited to using the county that's in your area. You can go visit another Veterans Resource Office. So as Kevin mentioned, if you go to show all counties, there they are, they're listed, all the counties there. In the resource book, it does list just the main offices. But if you go to a big county, say like Los Angeles, multiple different locations there. So in the booklet, it'll probably just list the main county veteran service office, but here we'll list multiple different versions of offices for you to go to. We again do highly recommend checking out this website because as you can see, they do have different hours. This Antelope Valley one at the top is only open on Tuesdays from 8 to 4. The College of the Canyons is open the second Thursday of each month. So again, you do have different options of when you can go, what times you can go. So we do highly encourage you to check that out. So I did see Julie log back on. So let's give her a second to see. Again, we do really appreciate your patience here. You know, we're practicing managing and coping when things don't go exactly as planned, right? So just being patient, working it through there. So I want to take you through the CalTAP page. All right, so get core curriculum here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Got you, we hear you, yay. Okay, so I'm gonna switch over to your presentation. Julie, thank you so much for.
Sorry about that, everyone.
It happens. We happens. Everyone being patient. So I'm gonna bring the PowerPoint back up and we'll get started.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry for the delay. You know, we're dealing with glitches on Zoom, but hey, what a perfect segue to a managing anger, understanding and managing anger presentation. You know, I thought it would be helpful just to start with my own, an introduction to myself. So my name is Julie Thornberry, and I'm a therapist and clinical supervisor for the U.S. Vets Outside the Wire program here in Los Angeles. You might be familiar with US Vets because it's the largest nonprofit serving veterans in America. So we have a lot of different services and programs to help veterans. The Outside the Wire program I work with provides mental health counseling and case management for student veterans, many of which have just transitioned out of the military into civilian life. So You know, we get a lot of different issues that come up with that in the veteran community. And when I had the opportunity to present this webinar, I wanted to do something that was practical and useful for veterans, but really for everyone, including your family members in the community. And one of the things I've really noted in my practice and in my life and in the media is there's such an uptick these days into stress and anxiety, frustration, and yes, anger. We're all dealing with a very unique and challenging time with the COVID-19 pandemic. So today I'm going to do a presentation about managing anger, about how to recognize anger in our lives, and how to make different choices so we can have better results. So next slide. So this is just a little introduction of what I'm going to talk about today. So we're going to get in a little bit of what is anger. Of course, we've all felt it, but we do feel it differently. And it can manifest differently for different people. So just getting a little introduction into anger and understanding it. And then we're going to move to really the heart and soul of the anger management skills. So recognizing our triggers, what makes us angry, what triggers anger in our relationships or perhaps in other people in our lives. And also the signs that happen in our body and our thoughts and our behaviors that let us know we're starting to get angry or in fact are fully angry. And then lastly, of course, there are the skills and strategies that we can utilize to de-escalate our anger or to manage it and process it in a far more effective way. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a good foundation and introduction to how to manage anger. And for some of you, it's going to be a review, and others, it's going to be an introduction. So I welcome you to participate if you'd like. You can get a pen and paper, perhaps use your computer, and you can jot down some of the triggers or some of the warning signs or some of the skills that you've recognized in your life or that you've utilized and have helped, or in fact want to try out yourself. So my goal is that you're going to come away from this being able to start making changes today. As you leave this presentation, you can go out and have some concrete things you can do to manage your anger better. Next slide, please. So what is anger? You know, clearly we've all felt it. Sometimes it's hard to describe. We might all use different words, but it really can range. I mean, it can be a mild irritation to a full-on angry outburst that could be very destructive. So we have a lot of different anger responses. There's a big spectrum, but really what we're interested in is how we can keep that spectrum from escalating to the point we do something destructive, or we say or do something we regret. So that's the idea of understanding our responses and being able to utilize skills that we can de-escalate or calm down a situation so we can maintain a better sense of control. And so we don't add to the problem through some form of destructive words or behavior. But what we don't want to do is villainize anger, because anger is a natural, usually healthy emotion. You know, in fact, it's a friend for us because it lets us know when we're in danger. It lets us know when we've been offended or boundaries have been crossed or there's an imbalance in our life. So it's really informing us. It's giving us valuable warning and information that is useful, not only to just survive, but to know when things are working or not for us. So we want to tune into our anger. We don't want to suppress it and ignore it or villainize it. We want to understand it, and we want to get the message it's giving us, and then we want to process it and communicate it in a useful, healthy manner rather than just blowing up and doing things that we'll feel bad about later. It's obviously a biological element. You know, when we start to feel angry, there's elements that start to happen in chemicals from the brain that can really charge us up and really make our anger far more intense. So next slide, please. So as I was saying, you know, the anger being a biological, physiological element, it really is there to help us survive. You know, the amygdala creates and sends out a lot of hormones to create the ability to fight and defend ourselves or to flee a situation and take flight. So the fight or flight response is really critical to human survival, and anger is a part of that. So it actually has been very useful to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, sometimes it gets triggered to an extreme, even when our life isn't in danger, and it still is overreacting to the point where it's hard for us to control our behavior. And then we can end up getting in trouble or once again doing or saying something we regret. So while it's natural, and I'm sure it's served a purpose for survival, which I'm sure many you veterans can relate to, and in fact all of us, we want to just find a way to manage it better. You know, poorly managed or suppressed anger can lead to a host of issues, and not just angry outbursts. I mean, there's a host of health issues, hypertension, high blood pressure. You know, a lot of that anger building up is really harmful on the body, especially when we're not able to process it in a healthy manner. And of course, if we poorly manage it and it explodes, it can create secondary issues, not just in our health, but in our relationships and in our work, and even create legal issues. But I really wanted to make sure that I noted that anger sometimes is masking underlying more sensitive and difficult emotions. So, you know, anger isn't always by itself. You know, sometimes it's just the easiest emotion to be processed, because when we get triggered, we have fewer inhibitions that can help us calm ourselves down. So we really get escalated. But underneath it can be a lot of other things, you know. So if you're experiencing sadness, but it's harder to express that, sometimes it will manifest in anger. So just keep note that if you're having anger issues, if this is happening to you a lot, look underneath it. There might be some other emotions that are happening, and really getting in touch and being able to process those in a healthy manner is really going to help not only your overall mental health and physical health, but certainly your ability to manage your anger. So next slide, please. So the next section of this presentation is really going into the foundation of anger management skills. So this is where we're looking at what triggers our anger. So obviously we're all going to be different, but there are going to be some shared themes that come up. I've certainly found it in my practice and in my life. And while there's a variety of triggers that we may respond to, if we really do some introspection and develop some insight, we'll realize there's certain triggers that perhaps trigger us more intensely or more regularly, not only for ourselves, but in relationships. I know in a lot of domestic relationship, there'll be certain triggers or patterns that come up with fights again and again that we cycle through, and certainly in our own life. So developing insight and awareness to what triggers us is going to help us learn about ourselves and how we get angry and how we process anger. But more importantly, for the anger management piece, it allows us to get an early glimpse or even be able to prepare for triggers. So when they first start happening, we're able to utilize skills to calm ourselves down before it escalates to the point that we don't feel as much in control or we've done something we regret. So tuning into our triggers is going to be a huge piece of this whole presentation. So next slide, please. So here is a short list of some typical anger triggers. By no means is this list exhaustive. I'm sure you may have triggers for yourself that are not on this list. This is an opportunity for you to think about that, or even jot down some triggers that you've noticed in yourself or your relationship, or perhaps with another person that you're experiencing anger issues with. So it could be certain topics, it could be certain holidays, certain types of language, certain types of dynamic in a relationship. There's a lot of different possibilities when it comes to anger triggers. So this is really something that's not going to be a one size fit all. But certainly in relationship issues, you know, in my counseling, I've heard, you know, issues of feeling criticized or blamed, issues of not getting enough help. Sometimes it can be issues that are triggering at work or with delayed benefits. I know a lot of people are trying to get unemployment benefits and they're struggling. So you can get frustrated, and even small domestic issues at home can blow things up. So just what is going on? What are the triggers? What is happening that's getting the anger going? So really spending some time to explore that is going to be useful. So next slide, please. So anger warning signs. So if you've started to get a short list of triggers, you're starting to recognize or think about triggers. Another aspect to tune into to learn more about our anger response, to be able to better manage it, is to recognize our anger warning signs. So these are the things that happen in our body and our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors that let us know we're starting to get angry or in fact are angry. And this is also useful in relationships. You know, we might see warning signs in other people that clue us in they're getting triggered. That is also useful. So what we're really going to do is just look into our body and really think about what starts happening. So this is a good opportunity if you're participating to really think about what type of signs happen in the body. You know, how do I know I'm getting angry? How do I know someone else is getting angry? Really tuning into that in your memory, or the next time you are in an argument or getting triggered, really paying attention to those signs. But really they break down into 4 broad categories. The first being physical, so this is what's happening in the body. So once again, physiological, biological reactions that accompany anger. You're also going to have behavioral, so these are the actions, the things we do or others do when we're angry and when we're starting to get angry. And of course, emotional. I mean, we're feeling the anger, of course, but there's a lot of other emotions that could be coming up or present when we're angry. And then of course, cognitive, and this is our thoughts. These are the thoughts that are happening when we're getting angry and when we're angry. And, you know, most certainly thoughts can also be triggers. You know, thoughts can really trigger a range of emotions, whether it be depression and anxiety or fear or stress, but certainly anger as well. But you're always going to notice certain thoughts coming up when you're getting triggered. So paying attention to those is going to be very helpful. So next slide, please. So this is some examples of physical warning signs. So if you look through this list, you might see some things that you recognize in yourself. Maybe you haven't even really noticed it, but when you think about it, it's coming up. I know in my own practice, I've heard a range that, sorry about that, a range of different symptoms and signs. And so I've heard a lot, heavy breathing, feeling hot, getting red, shaking, a variety of different physical symptoms. Certainly you get that adrenaline rush. So people get up, they pace, they're frowning, they clench their jaws, or they're feeling tense. You'll have a lot of physical warning signs. And this will, of course, be easier to recognize in yourself than others, but you will be able to see some of these in yourself as well. So recognizing that will be helpful. Next slide, please. So these are some examples of behavioral warning signs. So once again, you'll get the pacing, the angry tone in voice, the yelling, clenched fists. You might slam doors, pound things. These are actions that represent the fact you're feeling angry. Of course, when it gets to the point of pounding things and yelling, you're already very escalated. So, you know, the earlier we can recognize some of the beginning signs, the more capable we will be to avoid going to those more escalated places. So next slide, please. Emotional warning signs. So once again, feeling angry, of course, but you're going to find other things: feeling abandoned, feeling rejected, feeling jealous, perhaps stress, frustration. A lot of these underlying emotions are percolating inside of us, and they complement the anger, they enhance the anger, and they're usually present when we're feeling angry too. So next slide, please. And cognitive warning signs. So once again, this is our thoughts, the thoughts we're having when we're starting to get angry and when we're really angry, being aware of them and how they're impacting our anger and our mood and, in fact, our behaviors. So thoughts of hurting someone, thoughts that someone's cheating, thoughts that you want to teach someone a lesson, or that someone's being rude on purpose. You know, when you start to have these thoughts, whether they're true or not, they're really going to ignite our anger, but they're also going to be present when we're having anger. So it's another element to be aware of during your managing anger process. So next slide, please. So I've included this anger rating scale because I think it's a good visualization of how anger can escalate at different levels. So say at the first, second, or third level of the scale, you're just feeling irritated. You're just starting to get angry. And this isn't really a dangerous area. You know, this is really where anger can live where you're in touch with it, but it hasn't blown out of control. You haven't started to do some of the behaviors that are destructive. Your body hasn't gotten worked up to the point where it's harder to de-escalate or control what you're doing. So really the 1 to 3, 1 to 4 is a great range. And you're certainly at this point going to start to notice physical signs. You're going to start to feel angry. That's going to look different for everyone. But you know, if you can start to recognize your triggers and your signs at that scale, then you're going to be a lot more capable of keeping things calm. So as it goes up and you get more escalated, or the argument gets more escalated, you get up to a 6 or 7, you're starting to yell. You're starting to get into an argument. You know, maybe you're starting to blame people. You're already escalated. At this point, you might even say things that you regret. And it's certainly not a great range to be in, but it is a common range. Certainly if you go out of, you know, the 7 range and you head towards 10, that's where you really can get into destructive behavior, violent behavior. You can have domestic violence. You can have punching walls and hurting yourself, damaging property, getting into physical fights, threatening people, and even the police can get involved, legal issues, you know, getting fired from work. So, and certainly for health, it's not good. So we really don't want to get in that range. So we really want to try to have an intervention much earlier to avoid getting to that place, because once you get to a 7 and higher, doing some of these skills or even being in control of what you're doing is going to be very difficult. So we want to really start earlier to recognize some of the earlier stages so we can have better results. Next slide, please. So anger management skills and strategies. So great, you understand more about your anger. Maybe you've recognized some triggers. You're getting more insight in how your body and your mind react, the warning signs. So you might say, what? Well, now why? What now? You know, great, I have all of this insight and this is helpful. I know this, but how can I actually manage it? What can I do? What are some concrete skills I can apply to make changes? And so this section is really important. It's really important for you to explore. And maybe you've even had some skills that have been helpful to de-escalate or to calm down or soothe yourself. This is a good opportunity to think about those skills and utilize them and build upon them. But maybe these skills aren't enough. Maybe they're not working. I mean, maybe they're even outdated. I mean, I know certainly in military service, certain skills that are required don't really translate well into civilian life. So for example, you might need to suppress or compartmentalize feeling grief or sadness or even anger at certain points because you have a job to do, you have duty. But when you go out into civilian life, doing the same thing can cause problems because you're suppressing things, and maybe even suppressing things for a long time that you experienced in military service or in your transition to civilian life. So some of the skills that we've learned aren't always helpful and they don't always adapt into new situations. So reevaluating our skills, what works, what doesn't, you know, you want to, why fix what's broken? On the other hand, why keep doing what's not working? You know, a lot of people keep doing the same things again and again, and they're not getting a new result and they get more frustrated. So we want to try new things so we can get different results. So here's some, just once again, it's going to be a short list of skills that I find have been helpful with my clients or in my life and that are usually recommended. So the first is obviously what we've already been talking about, the skill of recognizing your anger early. You know, so recognizing those triggers, recognizing those signs, being able to do that is a skill, and it's a very important skill. So the more you practice that, you practice recognizing your triggers or thinking about your triggers and your signs, the more you do that and think about it, the stronger that skill will be. And that will help all the other skills that come after it. I put taking a time out. So I know for a lot of you parents, you're going to be like, wait a second, time out. I mean, this is something I do with my kids, but we also sometimes need a little break and time out. So when we start to get triggered, when we feel ourselves getting angry, certainly if we feel at risk for escalating, it's a good idea to just remove yourself from that situation. Just take a break, take a time out, step out of the room, and just allow your body and your chemicals and your brain to calm down. I mean, even a 10 or 15-minute break can make a big difference, particularly if you're not too escalated yet. Now, obviously, being able to communicate to other people that you're triggered and need to take a break will help, because then they'll be aware of why you're removing yourself, why you need that space. I highly recommend talking about this when you're not angry. So if you're in a relationship where there are a lot of anger issues, when you're not angry is a good time to bring up issues in general, but specifically managing anger and anger management skills. You can talk about triggers and plans of how to deal with it when you do get angry, so other people can be aware of what's happening. You have a plan you can go to. And I know a lot of you veterans are quite aware of doing drills and practicing. So when you get into a moment of crisis, you have some muscle memory. You already have a plan in place. So this is very similar. It's like talking to your partner or in your own life or with your counselor, just coming up with a plan of how to deal with things. So when the time comes, you already have some things you can do right off the bat, rather than just relying on your emotional reaction. So the next is deep breathing. So this is something I teach to almost all of my clients, and not just people with anger management issues. It works for so many different things. So stress, anxiety, panic, insomnia, health, just relaxation in general. But it really can help calm ourselves down when we're feeling angry. So really, you know, in terms of deep breathing, the key is to remember that it's just a very easy process. I highly recommend it as a skill. It has no side effects. You can take it with you everywhere. It's very simple, easily adapted. So incorporating this into your life regularly, but certainly when you're starting to feel irritated and angry, it can really help calm you down. And I think taking a break and a timeout and deep breathing together really complement each other. So I highly recommend combining the two. And really, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but to just say it in the simplest terms, it's really breathing deeply through your nose slowly and then exhaling out of your mouth. Just doing that in a rhythm, just doing it very slowly, getting that air down to your diaphragm rather than having shallow, fast breathing in your lungs, which often happens when we're feeling stressed or angry. That act alone of just focusing on your breathing and letting your body calm down is really, really helpful. You know, every time I do it in a session, I always walk away thinking, why don't I do this more in my own life? It's really, really useful. And you can actually adjust it. You know, you can do it for 3 rounds of deep breathing and that alone will help, but you can do it longer. You can close your eyes and visualize different things. I mean, there's a lot of ways to adapt it. So this is going to be a little trial and error for you to see what works for you, but it's highly recommended as a tool and a skill to calm down our anger. Next slide, please. Exercise. So I know we always hear exercise is good for almost everything, and it really is an important thing to incorporate in our life, particularly if we're dealing with a lot of anger and frustration, because it is a great release. Obviously, right now, a lot of gyms are closed. People are, you know, quarantined with a lot of other individuals. You know, our routines are off. So this becomes more difficult, which only makes the situation worse, I think, for many. But you can just get outside and take a walk. You know, you can do just simple exercises at home. You know, there's a lot of Zoom exercise videos out there. There's just a lot of walking, just getting sunshine. Anything to move your body is going to help you feel better. I know when I feel stressed or frustrated, going to do a workout always makes me feel better. Now, obviously, if you're really escalated, this isn't going to be that useful. So this is a lifestyle change, but it's also something you can incorporate when you're just starting to feel stressed and frustrated or beginning to feel angry. You know, jumping in and doing some exercise or something physical can really redirect that energy and calm yourself down. And it has a lot of health benefits that you can gain as well, physically and of course mentally. They really all do connect. The next one is thinking of consequences. So this one is going to be really challenging to do if you get above a 6, you know, because thinking clearly when we're already angry is going to be really difficult. So this is something to kind of incorporate in your life, especially if you're just starting to get angry. Thinking of the consequences, is this really going to help? You know, is this going to blow up? I mean, is this something that we argue about regularly? Does it ever help? You know, is this a good time to do it? Are we already triggered? Because as we know, if we're already triggered and upset, resolving a problem or getting our point across or communicating becomes far more difficult. So a lot of this is just incorporating into your life, and certainly when you're just starting to get angry, because then it can redirect your behavior and you can make other choices rather just being, you know, at the will of whatever your emotional reactions are when you get angry. And lastly, here we have communication. I really cannot stress the importance of communication enough. I mean, we could do 5 webinars on communication, and really I hope someone else can do one, because it's such an important piece for our mental health, for our relationships, and certainly in terms of managing anger. You know, a lot of times we have really legitimate suffering or offenses or issues that are happening, and anger serves as a warning sign. It's actually trying to help us to know we're in danger, or that we're out of balance, or that we've been offended. It's letting us know something. But instead of just reacting to it and then having an angry outburst, being able to recognize what it's telling us and actually make changes in our life that can help balance it and reduce that anger from where it starts. And so communicating effectively is a big piece of that. So in our relationships, if we suppress things we're angry about and then we only reveal it when we're escalated and we blow up, we end up really saying a lot of things that are hurtful mixed in with a lot of important information. But of course, once we're yelling and we're escalated, a lot of that information gets lost because people have stopped listening, because they're offended, because they're yelling back. So really what we're trying to communicate isn't getting heard, and it's not effective. And in fact, it might be causing a lot of other problems because we might mix in information or insults or obscenities that aren't appropriate and that aren't true. So it's hard for the other party to know what's true or not, or to even hear it or listen to it. So learning how to communicate before you blow up effectively is huge. This is something you can really work on in counseling, but it certainly doesn't require it. It's really just being mindful of how we're feeling and how we can communicate it in a way that's healthy. So obviously, if you can say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or I'm not okay with that, or negotiating doing something differently before you get angry could really help, because once it goes through the roof, unfortunately, that communication becomes ineffective. So the more we can communicate effectively all the time, or when we can and when we're not escalated, the less out of control anger we're going to feel, and the more empowered we are to make changes in our life and to be heard and to advocate for ourselves and to respect that anger and use it as a guide rather than just let it be something that controls us or, you know, sends us to a very negative place. So next slide. So I put here reducing or eliminating alcohol or use of certain drugs. I've put that because I've noticed that with a lot of anger management issues, there can be sometimes alcohol or certain drugs involved. Certainly we can drink responsibly. You know, many of us can handle that, but just be aware that alcohol can lower inhibition, so it becomes far easier to say what we feel or to express something that's difficult and maybe not the most healthy manner because we are inebriated. And it can also deregulate our emotions and make it harder to apply our skills and regulate emotions. So trying to do an argument or deal with an issue when you're on any form of drug or alcohol, it's not going to be really productive. And if you notice a lot of issues with alcohol or drugs related to anger or mental health issues, then clearly it might be an underlying issue. You know, I know alcohol use can be a coping method for a lot of people to deal with frustration or sadness or anger. It can numb us, it can distract us, but it can also turn on us and create a lot of other issues, addiction issues, anger management issues, other legal issues and health issues. So being mindful of the role of that with our anger is going to be a big key for many of you in terms of really effectively being able to use these skills and make changes. And obviously counseling, you know, here I am a counselor, so of course I believe in it, but unfortunately in our culture and in sometimes in certain segments of the veteran population, there's a stigma about getting counseling or asking for help. There's a stoicism, a desire to be strong, and it's hard to allow themselves to be vulnerable. So reaching out for counseling doesn't necessarily mean someone's crazy. It doesn't have to attach to a stigma. It really is just about improving yourself. And there can be underlying issues such as PTSD PTSD, anxiety, or depression that can be helped and relieved. And that alone can relieve a lot of anger management issues. But even if you don't have those issues, counseling can be useful to deal with communication, relaxation, anger management, creating boundaries, recognizing our dynamic and patterns. It just can be a hugely helpful skill and strategy to better ourselves and feel better and do better, but certainly with anger management, because I work on that a lot with my clients and I've seen a lot of amazing results. So be open to it. There's nothing cowardly or weak about doing it. It's okay to reach out for help. I know with a lot of the student veterans I work with, they were initially reluctant because they, had some stigma or they wanted to appear strong. But as we started to work together, they really realized they needed it. So please don't let fear or stigma get in the way of reaching out for help, even if it's just to work on relationship issues. I know with Outside the Wire, we work with a lot of student veterans. I know the VA offers a lot of counseling and therapy. US Vets has a Women Vets on Point program, specifically for female veterans that offer counseling as well. So there's a range of different places to receive counseling, and I just urge you to reach out. And at the end of this presentation, I have my email, and if you need any more information about how counseling can help or connecting to counseling through US Vets, I'm certainly happy to help with that. Moving on to the last, we have meditation and visualization. So this is really just kind of an extension of the deep breathing and the relaxation skills. So meditation and visualization can just be useful in your life in general when you're feeling stressed or frustrated, but certainly if you start to feel yourself irritable and getting angry, being able to calm down, do some stretching, some progressive muscle relaxation of tensing your muscles and then relaxing it, being able to close your eyes and visualize a place that's comforting or happy to you, just doing deep breathing, focusing on a mantra or a word or phrase that's comforting or empowering to you. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but really the key is just to calm down our body, to be mindful and calming down and tuning into our body and being able to regulate that. And meditation and visualization really can help with that. So next slide, please. So here's a page, I just put some resources I think are helpful. I let out with the National Domestic Violence Hotline number. Not everyone who has anger management skills is going to escalate to domestic violence, but there is a risk there. And I wanted to include this number because it's available 24/7. It's confidential. If you're experiencing domestic violence, at risk of experiencing it, if you need advice and help for your life or other people, it's a great resource. Please use it. And along similar lines, we have the Veteran Crisis Hotline. I give this number to all of my clients. I think all veterans should have this in their phone, particularly if you're dealing with any type of, domestic violence, anger management, suicidal ideation, or just any struggles and you need support, you need help, you perhaps want to be linked to services. It really offers a wider range of confidential help and it's out there for all of you. So please utilize it, share it with your veteran brothers and sisters because it's there for you. And I'd like to just give a recommendation for a family-friendly film. I think really illustrates a lot of what I've been talking about in terms of the emotions and the brain and how thoughts impact mood and behavior. And it really illustrates how anger can get behind the wheel in our life when we have a lot of other emotions we are blocked or suppressed. And it's really fun. It's okay for the whole family. But even if you don't have kids or you're not in a family situation, it could be a nice illustration and further exploration of some of the things I'm talking about, and not just about anger, but about mood and behavior in general, and the brain and feelings. So I highly recommend it. It's a few years older now, but I still think it's available on most streaming platforms. And I think you might enjoy it. And then lastly, this is my information, my email. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has, any follow-up questions you may not get to the panel today. And I'm also happy to help connect you to any of the US Vets resources, and that it goes beyond mental health and anger management. And we also have housing services. We have employment services. So we have a host of different programs and services to help veterans. So if you want to look up the US Vets website, there'll be more information. It's easy to find, or you can contact me and I can send you in the right direction and help you in any way that, that I can, because at the end of the day, our goal is to serve those who have served. So we want to serve veterans. And on that closing note, I hope this information has been useful for you. I hope you can leave this presentation and have some ideas and some basic beginning skills where you can start experimenting and practicing, because some of this is going to be practicing and trying things and seeing what works. But the key is to do it as early as possible when you're triggered so you can get the best results. So on that note, I'm going to close up. And I just really hope the best for all of you, for health, for safety, for happiness. You know, as you go out on your journey today, I wish you the best. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Julie, for that wonderful presentation and for sharing with everyone today. So I do just want to remind everybody as we begin to transition into our question and answers virtual panel, you can utilize that chat function in order to send your questions and we'll get them answered. We do have a few for Kevin. So Kevin, we're going to start with you, get you unmuted, and I will get those questions to you. So first question for Kevin. How does Calvet work with the VA? I realize that Calvet is the state and the VA is federal. Do services overlap?
Well, no, actually, not much. What we do is we try to maintain a very strong relationship with the VA so that when we refer veterans to them, we know that they're getting the service that they need. When you served in the military, your paycheck came from the federal government. It didn't come from the state government. And so, Sam, it's enough. Sorry about that. And so we don't have. So the issues that you have with the federal government or with the VA, whether it be VBA or VHA or the National Cemetery, we do collaborate with them, but we don't have any authority or control over what benefits and resources or what's going on with them. We do advocate on your behalf through our regional offices. If you are appealing a decision that they made, we definitely go to bat for you, and we have people that are specialists in appealing any sort of upgrades that you may have or denials that you may have gotten. So we work very closely with the VA at their regional offices also, not just with the healthcare administration.
Awesome. Okay, next question. How are CVSOs helping veterans during the COVID-19 pandemic?
It is a challenge for all of us. It's a challenge for you out there, and it's an extreme challenge for those of us that work for large organizations such as the state of California, trying to navigate our way through new technology, this, for instance, and our CVSOs have that same challenge. And they're doing a really good job of setting up virtual offices in some places, working remotely from home, trying to answer as many phone calls as possible, and then staying in communication with the people that they need to stay in communication with to file the papers. This is fee waiver season for us right now. We're getting a lot of calls with regards to the college fee waiver, and our CVSOs are instrumental in making sure that paperwork is filled out properly and then turned into the proper people. So they are working diligently to adjust to what this is. I refuse to call it the new normal because I'm not going there yet, but to adjust to the situation that we're in.
Okay, we have one more. Can I get help from any CVSO or link, or do I need to speak with the individuals in my area? We cross-pollinate. You can ask any of us, again, for the links especially, and also for the CVSOs, we're authorities, or we have a better idea of what's available to us within our own region. And a lot of times we will refer you to somebody in another region because they know what resources and benefits are available. We're every day is different. If you hit up against a brick wall or you don't feel like you're getting the answer you want, you can easily call any. We're not restricted by region to answer your question simply. I would recommend that you use those that are in your region because they do have that local knowledge. But if you're not getting what you think to be a satisfactory answer, feel free to call any CVSO or any link that you might have. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but for you, Kevin. There does not appear to be any Calvet services available in my area, which is Mariposa County. This is also true of the VA. Is this issue being addressed for those of us in remote areas?
From a federal standpoint, from a VA standpoint, I know that they've reached out with mobile, online healthcare, as well as with their e-benefits program, so that you can virtually handle some of the issues that you may have with regards to VA benefits. Every county, and I will state, every county except for Alpine County and Mono and Inyo also share a CVSO, has a county veteran service office in their area. Obviously, the amount of staffing they have and the amount of the hours that they have are predicated upon the population base, and it's just a dilemma that we all deal with, a challenge that we all have, in that if you're in a very remote area where there's not a very rural area, then we don't have the same concentration of veterans, and the benefits tend to migrate towards the larger populations. That doesn't mean we're not there for you, and we will do everything we can to find some help for you. So please contact us.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. That's all the questions we have for you. We're going to switch over to Julie. Julie, let me get you unmuted.
Hello.
Okay, perfect. The first question I have for you: do you have any advice on choosing the best coping mechanisms when dealing with negative emotions, especially during the self-isolation period?
So some of that audio kind of went out, but what I'm hearing is what kind of skills you can use during an isolation, like during the pandemic?
That's correct.
Okay, so, you know, I think in terms of skills in isolation, obviously we're gonna be more limited. You know, we can't go to the gym, perhaps seeing friends and family are gonna be limited. So certain aspects of our life which have been soothing and helping us in the past, clearly we're not gonna be as available. So we're gonna have to adjust to that. And that's gonna look different for everyone. You know, that could be, you know, finding new ways to exercise. So as I mentioned in my presentation, like perhaps going out and doing urban hikes or doing walks or doing exercises outside, even if you don't have space inside. You know, there's a lot of different things that we can do, but we just have to be creative and adjust. And certainly, you know, in terms of being isolated, you know, beyond anger, that can really lead to feelings of depression and isolation. We can get caught in our thoughts. You know, I have a lot of clients who have a lot of time alone, and they're getting in their thoughts and their fears, and it's just igniting a wealth of different things. So part of that is just not just staying isolated in your thoughts. You know, get out, distract yourself, get on the phone. I know a lot of younger generation, they don't like to be on the phone, but this is a good time beyond Zoom to actually even call people, or I know even some people are writing letters. So making an active decision to continue to reach out to people, to not stay isolated, to find social distancing, appropriate ways to connect online and through the phone. So it's really just adjusting some of the things we would normally do and finding ways to do different things in our life. And some of that is just simply going to be trial and error, to be honest.
Thank you. Next question. Can you explain the difference between anger behaviors and abusive behaviors, and or how those anger behaviors can lead to abusive behaviors?
Well, when we're escalated with anger, you know, certainly abuse can be a result, you know, so I already mentioned domestic violence. So just because we get angry doesn't mean we're abusive. We don't want to link anger to abuse, but I do think escalated anger responses are behind a lot of abuse and a lot of domestic violence. You know, in terms of parenting, you know, kids can push buttons, and especially now more than ever, and people can lose their cool and snap and do and say things that they would regret, that would be considered abuse. You know, and a lot of that is just because they've gotten escalated and they just respond to it. And that may or not be something they experienced in their childhood. It just becomes an angry reaction. And the same with domestic violence. If things get escalated in an argument, if God forbid alcohol's involved and people are not regulated in their emotion, that anger can fuel into the domestic violence. So the key here is once again, stopping the anger escalation before it gets to abuse. And abuse obviously can be hitting, it can be emotional, it can be psychological, verbal, saying horrible, mean attacks on people. Sometimes verbal and you know, psychological abuse can be as bad as physical. It's really when you are crossing the line and harming someone. And I know there's a spectrum and there could be a whole webinar on that. But the key of it is just keeping it in the anger realm and not the abuse realm is de-escalation. So thinking of that rating scale, not going over a 5 or a 6. So that's just redirecting and calming yourself down before it gets to that point. And some people aren't going to be able to do this on their own. They really will need help with counseling and or maybe even alcohol or substance abuse treatment, because I find a lot of substance abuse and alcohol can be involved when it escalates to actual abuse and domestic violence.
Okay, next question. Does US Vets have a phone number or chat line where I can reach out if I'm experiencing negative emotions?
You know, absolutely. I unfortunately didn't include their number on this presentation. I don't have it in my brain right now, but what you can do, if anyone needs to reach out for US Vets, you can email me. I will be happy to answer questions and redirect people. You can also just look up US Vets, Google it on any engine search, and it will pop up. It will give you all the information. US Vets is not just in LA, we're all around the country. We have a lot of different sites. So if you look up the US Vets website, it's very easy to find, or if you want more specific information, you can actually just reach out to me and use my email, and I'll be happy to answer questions and redirect you.
And I just want to let everybody know that we did notice that we had a typo for your email, Julie, and that is updated now on screen.
Great, thank you.
Question, where can I find more information regarding anger management?
So anger management is a big topic. You can, I've even done some research before I did this presentation. There's enormous amounts of information on the internet about anger management, a lot of tips, a lot of articles, other PowerPoints, videos. So really, if you have access to the internet, which I think we all do now, and you certainly do if you're watching this, just Google it, do research. There's a lot out there. I had a small window to cover a lot of information. So, certainly I couldn't reach everything, but there's a wealth of information out there, and certainly a lot of books as well, if you're into reading, and obviously, counseling resources that can help with anger management if you really need some help and some guidance working through that issue.
Do you find certain management skills work better than others?
I think it honestly is it's not a one size fit all. I think that everybody's different. I mean, I personally think when you're starting to get triggered, being able to remove yourself and calm down, that's just basic. I know that's more complicated depending on your situation. Sometimes I've worked with students who can't easily feel comfortable just walking out of a class or walking out of work, or a minor just walking out of the house. I mean, I know that there are restrictions, and that's why I think it's important to come up with some ideas before you're angry and talk about it with other people, have a plan so you can try different things to see what works. But I really think de-escalation really is helped when you can remove yourself from the stimulus. So if you're in the argument, taking a break and just allowing yourself to calm down. It's amazing how much you can calm down in even 10 or 15 minutes, unless you've really gotten escalated. And then suddenly you'll go, okay, your reason will come back, your logic will come back, you won't feel as triggered, and it will be a lot easier to make decisions and how you want to respond, or maybe even talking about it later. So once again, not a one size fit all. I've given a few ideas, you can try them and see what you feel, but I really believe just removing yourself if you can and calming down, doing some deep breathing and just settling yourself down is just such a basic good skill to start with.
What strategies could be used to stop bottling anger?
I think communication is a big one. Obviously a lot of anger, we have reasons. It could be we're hurt, it could be we're offended, kind of doing some soul searching. Why am I angry? What is underneath? And sometimes people feel really angry and they don't even really know. So really why are you angry? You know, sometimes people can blow up over minor things, and that all of that anger isn't really about that small thing. It's just, it unleashed it. So really getting in touch with what is behind that. Counseling can help with that, but it's not necessary. Because then when you know what's happening, you can make a plan and practice different skills to calm yourself down and not bottle. But I really believe in communication skills. I think a lot of us bottle it up because we don't know how to tell people how we feel. We are worried they're going to react badly. We want to avoid an argument. Maybe we don't want to reveal exactly what we're feeling, so we bottle it. And I know that with veterans, bottling and compartmentalizing sometimes has been necessary when you're in a crisis. You just can't deal with all of that. And so you've developed a skill to sort of bottle it and handle it later. Well, it doesn't always get handled later effectively. So communication, you know, some people are writers, write in a journal, write out what you're feeling. Other people, you know, might want to process it in different ways. But at the end of the day, getting in touch with why you're angry and being able to do some different strategies and communicate. So if someone's hurting you, you know, if you just hide it and then you blow up and you scream at them, you know, maybe finding a way such as I statements, like just expressing what you feel rather than blaming, you know, anything along that line that can help decompress you and just make changes in your life where you're not as triggered is really going to help.
Okay, and last question. What do you suggest to overcome self-isolation along with substance abuse, taking into account shame and cutting of ties, etc.? My experience with the crisis line was hit or miss and was difficult for me to make the call in the first place.
You know, absolutely. You know, I've heard so much about people in recovery not being able to go to meetings, being isolated, and it's such a negative aspect of addiction is when people feel alone. So staying connected. So if you're not already in an AA or some types of, or NA to get support, I cannot recommend doing that enough. I know there are a lot of groups specifically for veterans. You know, it's really kind of looking in your community or looking on the AA or NA website, because even though they may not be doing the face-to-face meetings in every state, they're still doing calls, they're still doing check-ins, you can still have a sponsor, they have Zoom meetups. There's a lot of ways to connect during this time. So really reaching out, you know, you've tried the crisis hotline, it's been hit and miss. Don't give up, you know, reach out to the VA. If you're a student, reach out to Outside the Wire. If you're a female, reach out to Women Vets on Point. You know, take advantage of resources offered to veterans for counseling, because under a lot of addiction issues are a lot of pain and hurt and trauma. So really dealing with those issues or undiagnosed mental health issues such as anxiety or depression or PTSD, counseling can really help alleviate some of those symptoms where it's easier then to deal with your substance abuse and connect into the community. So I cannot emphasize AA, if you're a member of a church, reach out to the church, they're still connecting. If you reach out to different military support groups, I mean, there's a lot of ways, but the key is don't just stay isolated in your thoughts. You know, some of those thoughts aren't necessarily true and they can really hurt us. So challenging those thoughts, getting help, reaching out, and certainly getting help with your alcohol or substance abuse is really going to really help the isolation and some of the anger issues.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was our last question at the moment. We're going to wait just a second to see if any more come in. I just wanted to remind everybody that this webinar was being recorded and will be available on our website in a few hours. In addition to that, a copy of this PowerPoint presentation will also be available. As I mentioned before, your email was incorrect on there, so now it's fixed. So the updated version will be available on our CalTAP website. So if you guys like to have that, it will be there. If you ever again want to get in contact with Calvet or CalTAP, you can use the 1-800 number, you can use my email on screen, or you can use our CalTAP email. So just again, there are multiple ways for you to reach out to us. So I don't think we've had any more questions. I just want to say, thank you to all of our presenters. Julie, you were amazing. Kevin, thank you for sharing all information. And again, thank you to everyone for being patient with us. I know we had a little bit of a snafu earlier when we started, but we just appreciate your patience. We appreciate you joining us. And we hope that you will continue to follow us and join us for any other webinars that we might be having, so that way we can continue to assist our veteran population. Again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day and happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy.